Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Hey, everybody. Welcome. Welcome. Hope you're having a great end to your week here as we head into Friday tomorrow, although it's only Thursday. This is Sam Andrus with the Terra Firma podcast. Those of you that have been watching on YouTube and have been hitting me up on Instagram, thank you so much. It's greatly appreciated. Again, this is a work in progress at this point in time. You know, I'm just trying to figure things out. Of course, hopefully gotten a little bit better each time we've been able to do an episode. But let me dial this down here. Okay. I am my own sound man, audio, visual, everything. So that's where we're at. Let me see here if I can kind of get in the picture a little bit better. There we go. Anyways, nothing's happened exciting in the last few days, has it? All right. Again, shout out Bill Maher. I miss you being on TV these days. I hear that you're off the last few weeks because of the writers' strike. Hopefully that gets resolved soon and Bill Maher can get back on the air because there's many pertinent topics to discuss in our current times. Today is a solo cast. I'll be here myself bringing to you some thoughts and some perspectives and opinions. And again, like I mentioned earlier, thank you to those of you that reach out to me. I've had at least 10 people over the last 2 months reach out and say, hey, it's really cool what you're doing. I really actually like the hour-long format or so. And they either watch me in their car, listen to me in their car, or kind of when they're about to go to sleep. And that's great. I am thankful for those of you that watch and that, observe me work the kinks out. And hopefully there's like a couple nuggets of like, truth serum and perspectives that I give that maybe you haven't thought of, or maybe you have, maybe it's the way you think too, or think similarly. And you're kind of like, yes, somebody else, I'm not alone. So today we're going to meander through a lot of things. Today's podcast is going to be mostly political based, I guess, if you want to classify it as such. I like that effect. I got to get somebody that can do the effects for me in real time here. But anyways, today, so June is Pride Month. And that's, for those of you that aren't familiar, if you're not, I don't know how you couldn't be. That's, I guess, these days associated not with just gay and lesbian rights, because I guess gay and lesbian people, some of whom are my friends, have, I guess, what we'd call equal rights. And that's great. I'm all for that. And you should be too. And so now it's morphed into LGBTQIA+, and now that's part of Pride. And so I guess it's lesbian, gay, bisexual, transsexual, queer. I don't know I forget what the I is for. And then some people add like two-spirit, this, that, the other, and there's a plus. I don't know what the plus means. I guess that just means like anybody who's human, or anybody who's a human that doesn't consider themselves a human, or if you think you're a nothing, or I don't know. Here's what I do know. I want to say at the outset, I did some Instagram short type videos on this earlier in the week just because I didn't have time to sit down and do a full podcast. What I do want to say is this at the outset. This is me personally, Terra Firma, Sam Andrus podcast. It's my show. I firmly believe in everybody's humanity and in everybody's right to live their life the way they choose. And I should caveat that as adults, kids are a different classification. Children are a different classification. We'll get into that. If you're an adult, you are the maker of your own destiny. You do have free will. And as long as you're not infringing on other people's constitutional rights or rights in general, human rights, and you're not harming anybody, committing violence, et cetera. And again, we got to remember, we're living in a time where people are trying to proffer out there that words are violence. And I'm here to say, no, words are not violence. And they'll say, well, Sam, certain words might lead people towards violence. Maybe, maybe not. But the violence itself is the physical act of harming somebody else. And that is the responsibility of the individual who inflicts it, regardless of what they listened to or didn't listen to or heard or didn't hear. I guess you'd call me a free speech absolutist. I do make exceptions. I don't think anybody can be completely absolutist, but probably close to it. And there's a lot of reasons for that. One is I firmly believe in the idea what universities and colleges for the most part used to believe in is that basically the truth will out. that at the end of the day, open, unfettered, unrestricted dialogue, thought, questions, critique is what leads us to a more understanding of the truth, a more accurate understanding of the truth. And particularly, free speech allows us to speak truth and question and criticize powerful people, government entities, corporations, rich, wealthy individuals. And we should never abandon that or let that shrink away. So again, I have friends who are gay and lesbian. I have friends that are 2 moms and 2 dads. And I don't have any transsexual friends that I'm aware of, at least. But if I did, I affirm their humanity and their right to live their lives as they see fit. But here's where I diverge from the dominant narrative we have out there. It seems that every year, the fever pitch of Pride Month and the LGBTQIA plus ever growing, ever expanding, ever morphing, ever relative movement dials it up about 10 notches or maybe 100 notches every year. And in the last couple of years, it seems like the government, local, state, federal, and corporations have all gotten somehow seemingly consistently on the same page in a lot of ways. And that concerns me because that tends to be what fascism is. Fascism is essentially when government and corporate oligarchic entities work lock and step towards their ends and not the diverse ends of the people. And they typically do that by getting, if you look at history, by getting 1 or 2 consistent messages that are the resounding messages that trump everything else. No pun intended. And I think what we're seeing now is there's some curious things. Like, why do we have a Pride Month? Why do we have even honestly a Black History Month? I mean, I can kind of see the Black History Month thing, but at the end of the day, there, and technically, you didn't know this. You heard it from here first, probably. This is also Men's Health Awareness Month, mental and physical. But you didn't hear that because it doesn't fit their narrative. And men are bad, especially white men. Men bad, white men very, very bad. Essentially, we have all these certain months. And oddly enough, we only have a single day for remembering fallen veterans and for honoring and remembering actual veterans that are still among us, Memorial Day and Veterans Day. Seems to me we should have probably a month for those people, for the people that fought unspeakable wars that pretty much none of us around today, my age or younger, would even have the slightest clue or want to. Very few of us would want to try to fight in trench warfare. We like our iPods and not our iPods, those are old. I'm dating myself. We like our iPads and our notebooks and our our MacBook Pros. We like our podcasts. We like our lattes. We like them daily and we like them hot. We like our pools and jacuzzis and our vacations and all that stuff. And those are all great things, but I'm just trying to draw a little bit of a stark contrast to set reality in here. I think it's been refreshing. I do have a couple gay friends that basically are on the same page as me. And as homosexual men, they are shocked and appalled at how trans, queer, etc., all this has kind of hijacked their movement, their community, and basically made the assumption that all lesbian and gay people are lockstep with trans and bisexual and queer, etc. So, and specifically that they're lockstep with this notion that these types of topics need to be taught, read, and presented in elementary schools. We'll get into that. Let me get a little bit of this coffee here, my throat. Let's see, what do we got here? We got rim shot. I like that one. Then we got chimes. So here's the thing. I don't have a problem with pride. I don't have a problem with LGBTQIA plus, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't have a problem with a Pride Month, really, although I do think it's unnecessary. And here's why. I think it's essentially just pandering by politicians, government officials, and corporations to essentially appease special interest groups and to capitalize on the marketing campaigns, although we're seeing that backfire nicely. And here's the deal. We live in a time where my other problem is we live in a time where there's a growing number of people and entities that seem to want to demand and insist that rational, fair-minded people agree that men who identify as women are actually women. And it seems to always be that direction, but also that women who identify as men are also actually men. And I'm here to say they're not actually either of those things. They're actually who they were born, and that's related to their biological, physiological reality. And it's really just as simple as that. And there's outliers. Sure, there's biological and physiological outliers and mutations, and intersexed and et cetera, et cetera. But those are just that. Those are the outliers. We cannot take the outliers of things and then make them determinative and normative for what's normal, because that's not true. That's not real. It's not accurate. And so I feel like a lot of us are being gaslit into tacitly or explicitly proclaiming inaccuracies and falsehoods as accurate and truthful, and they're not. And this is very dangerous because this can lead society, when we can't basically agree physically and factually on who's a man and who's a woman. I can't even believe I'm saying that. Folks, we're done. That's it. That's the end of the game. Okay? Because that is the biological foundation for procreation. And sure, two women who are lesbian can have somebody else, or one of them can be impregnated by somebody else, have their kid. But again, it still takes a man and a woman to have the baby. You can be a woman who identifies as a man, like that person on the Vanity Fair cover, if you haven't seen it. You can call yourself a man all you want, but if you are pregnant and having a baby, you are a woman because you had to have been born with a uterus to do so. Okay? Plain and simple. This is not hard. I'm sorry if it hurts your feelings. I'm sorry that it's not progressive enough. I'm sorry that it's not, oh, can't we just, make believe for them? No, we really can't. Because if we do on that, then we can make believe about everything. Literally. I don't know if you saw the documentary by Daily Wire and Matt Walsh. I'm not a huge, I'll say this. I am an issues guy and I'm a solutions guy. And I'm a facts guy. And I'm not always right on all those things because I am a human being. But I do listen to diverse viewpoints, right? I do like, and I do believe people should. So Daily Wire is a conservative, emerging a media conglomerate. And, you have Ben Shapiro, who's pretty well known, and you have Matt Walsh, who's kind of come out in the forefront on this whole transsexual, whatever you want to call it, oddity we have going on in our society today. And Matt Walsh basically put together this documentary over the last year and a half called "What is a Woman?" And that's literally the question. He goes, you got to watch it. It was on, they made it free on Twitter for like 24 hours. There's a big kerfuffle where Elon Musk had to intervene because some people at Twitter suppressed it and didn't allow it to have reach. Elon then tweeted out that every parent should watch it. And I think it was up to like almost 200 million views. I think it was like 178 million views the last time I looked at it, which is just mind blowing. And you watch these doctors, therapists, people twist themselves in knots to not answer or make a case that a woman is subjective. Being a woman is a feeling. Being a woman is anyone who says they are. Literally. And my favorite part of the movie is Matt sits down with a physician who does gender reassignment or sex reassignment surgeries, men to women parts, women to man parts, etc. And he says, okay, so if you don't think there's any harm in somebody who's experiencing gender dysphoria, which is the actual ailment they have, they're not actually the opposite gender, they have a dysphoria. He says, look, what if somebody, and there are people like this actually, you can Google it, you can YouTube it. What if somebody is, I think called ableist, basically like I identify as a disabled person. I don't feel like I have an arm. Therefore, I want you to remove my perfectly good working arm. And you have to do it because that's how I feel. And you have to abide by my feelings. So cut off my arm tomorrow. You have to do it because if not, I'm going to become suicidal. And if not, if you don't cut off my arm or my leg or my foot, then I'm going to experience such anguish that I can't live. So what's crazy is there's doctors that would say, okay, we should do it then. But rational people would say, no, that person has a dysphoria or a disillusionment or a mental disease that needs to be addressed from compassion and a place of understanding and other treatments that are not mutilating, self-mutilating. And this is where this path leads, guys. If you start saying everything is relative and based on personal feelings and there's no standards, there's no normative factual reality, then you have to abide by. If I come to you as a physician and say, I feel like a woman, I need you to cut my penis off. That's how I feel. And you're willing to do that, then you also got to be willing to do it if I tell you, I don't want to have a nose anymore. I don't like the way it looks on my face. And I know this sounds funny, but that's the logical line of reasoning that you'd have to abide by. Otherwise, you're not being consistent. You don't actually believe what you believe, which begs the question, are a lot of these procedures being done for the pharmaceutical, medical device, medical surgical, medical doctor, industrial complex, right? There's a lot of money in doing surgeries and doing corrective stuff and all the complications that come along with those types of surgeries and all the medications, et cetera. Again, I'm not saying it's a conspiracy. I'm just saying in modern times, even in times past, we cannot look past the fact that in America, medicine is tied to profit, and profit is a great motivator for people, both corporate and individual. And so if you haven't watched What is a Woman documentary, I highly suggest it. Daily Wire, look for it on Twitter. I think it's still free for the rest of the month now. You'll be able to see it somewhere. Honestly, if you have to pay the $15 for a subscription, it's worth it. So fast forwarding into another aspect of this is the biggest issue I have is this is I can affirm everybody as an adult their right to live, but parents are still in charge of their kids. And it's weird that some people don't like that. I think because some people grew up with like poor childhoods, they think that like parents should be hands off or like, oh, because I had a bad childhood. But that's not the normative experience. Most people don't have terrible childhoods these days. Okay. Most people I encounter have loving parents, not perfect parents, but that deeply want the best for their kids. So in California, what's wild is once my son turns 12, technically speaking, legally speaking, he has to give me permission. He has to sign something at 12 stating to his physician that I have the right to come in with him for his medical appointments, or my wife does. That is crazy. My child, who I house, who I teach, who I care for, who I protect, who I pay for everything, who I pay for the actual insurance they're utilizing, has to give me permission at age 12. And this all started because some 12-year-olds might have gender dysphoria and they might be transsexual. And what if you as a parent disagree with that and you don't want to affirm that? You see, this is how we get to crazy town, okay? And I've gotten asked before, what would you do if your son was that? I would say, well, you're not a girl. I'm sorry you feel that way, so we're going to go seek out some therapy and treatment to help you work through those feelings, but we're not going to do anything like remove genitalia or take puberty blockers. That's absolutely insane. It's my job as a rational adult parent to call balls and strikes. When my kid's 18 or older, sure, ultimately it's their call. I'm going to have a strong influence though. I guarantee it. I'm not worried about that, but I'm just saying that as an example. So here's the thing. I think realistically, we need more sane people to start speaking out against this in your own way. Okay. Daily, I hammer it on my social media because it matters to me that much. It's that important that people understand the situation we're in. And again, our politics try to put us, you're either a total ally and completely on board with LGBTQIA and everything and anything they say and do, and there's no end to it. Or you're a right-wing racist, bigot, homophobe, transphobe, blah, 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 blah. And honestly, if you fall into those two camps, I have to classify you as not intellectually serious. The intellectually serious position is in the middle that says people have the freedom to live the way they want to live as adults. I also have the freedom to affirm or not affirm the way they live. That doesn't mean that I hate them. That doesn't mean I'm a bigot, because that's what they want to do. If you don't affirm everything blanketly that they say, if you're not a ally, what they want to do is say you're transphobic, homophobic, bigot, etc. Sorry, I'm not. I'm not afraid of homosexual people. I'm not afraid of transsexual people. And I fully affirm their right to live the way they choose. However, I also affirm my right to insist that it's inappropriate for 5 to 10-year-olds in elementary school to be taught in assemblies or in classroom time that mommies and daddies and men and women, or men and women have sex together and blah, 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 blah. I don't even want that heterosexual aspect taught. And the point I make to people is, I'm guessing these LGBTQIA plus people wouldn't like it if I insisted that the LAUSD had an assembly on the Christian faith and the Christian family structure as it's traditionally understood, or the Muslim faith and a Muslim family structure. And no, those are not non sequiturs, and no, those are not non-comparables, because again, at the end of the day, they're both lifestyles. They're both deeply held realities for those parties, and they're all valid to each of those parties. The problem is, our public schools don't need to be in the business of teaching any religion unless it's from a purely textbook standpoint about Christianity exists, et cetera, et cetera. The problem is this: the pride stuff is starting way too young, and it's turning into this thing where it's like trying to get kids to have to celebrate it when kids don't fully understand what it is. And people have the right to not celebrate something if they don't want to. And when they talk about rights, the problem is this: is people conflate this notion of rights with this idea that everybody has to agree and celebrate with me, otherwise they're a bigot, otherwise they're a transphobe. So I urge you, join the middle ground rational party where I'm at, and call people out on that. If they call you homophobic or transphobic, you call them intellectually dishonest, because that's exactly what they are. They are intellectually weak. They are weaklings, okay? So the real way is to say, I affirm your right to believe and view things the way you do and live the way you do, while at the same time demand that you also affirm my right to raise my kids the way I see fit and to control what they see when they're 5 to 10 years old at school, okay? Our school should focus on math, science, reading, history, social studies, civics, computers, technology, science, biology, chemistry at a very young age. Those things, the things that India and China and all our competitors in the world that want to eat our lunch and take our home are focusing on, okay? Not having 5 and 7-year-olds ponder if they're actually a boy or actually a girl or what their feelings are, because 5 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10-year-olds, their feelings change moment to moment. They don't even know what feelings really are. They feel them, but they don't know how to. They're learning how to regulate them and think about them. And it's really sick that there's adults that think that kids should act upon feelings with permanent regard. Okay? So feel empowered. I urge you to come to my middle ground camp, which I think most people are in. Just most people aren't willing to speak up. And, you know, I'm not going to shop at Target while they have all the pride stuff up. I don't need to take my 4-year-old into Target and have them see lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, etc. stuff up. I don't need it. I don't want them to see that right now. Yeah, when they're 17, 18, 19, 20 in college, or they come to me with questions, sure, we'll talk about it. And sure, I'll let them know that people are free to live the lifestyles they choose to live. But here's how we live. Right? And just like those LGBTQI people with their kids are going to take the perspective they want to. And I'm guessing a lot of them don't affirm Christian, Muslim, or Jewish lifestyles to their kids. In fact, they probably think they're bigoted and transphobic. Right? So it's got to cut both ways. It's got to cut both ways. So I'm not saying this topic go away. Again, for a long time, it was abortion. That's the politicians used to divide. Now that Roe v. Wade got overturned, it's kind of like, oh, abortion doesn't work to fund, like the Republicans used to fundraise on abortion, but now it's kind of like, okay, the Democrats used to fundraise on it. And, they engage in crisis fundraising. Our politicians, like 95% of our politicians in this country, are absolutely pathetic, intellectually weak, bought and paid for shills. Point blank. They're losers. Okay. A couple people I like, I'm interested in hearing. I haven't seen anybody on the Democratic ticket I like, which I identify as left of center. I don't know if I'll vote for a Republican, but I may. I like Vivek Ramaswamy. I like Chris Christie. I haven't liked Chris Christie before, but I like the fact that he called out Donald Trump unequivocally as the clown show that he is. And I like Vivek Ramaswamy for being unequivocal and being precise and clear in stating and articulating things that nobody else is willing to, because he isn't completely beholden to the political machinery, right? And the donor class. So I also am intrigued by some of the stuff that Robert Kennedy Jr. is coming out with. So we'll see what we need. And I know these people are not likely to win, but what I'm hoping for is that they bring robust critique into the system. Donald Trump was like a Molotov cocktail. He's not a serious person. These people are serious intellectuals, serious critiques, seriously engaged in the issues. You know how I know Donald Trump's not serious? He promised that within 2 years he'd give you the best and the biggest and whatever healthcare. It'd be better than whatever you've had. He didn't do any of that. In fact, Donald Trump didn't do most of the things that he said he would do basically in the first year or two. He never did them in 4 years. And it's obvious to anybody with eyes and a brain. You can see Donald Trump is a supremely self-interested person. He's a narcissist, period. Okay. Donald Trump does things in the interest of Donald Trump only, at all, on purpose. We all are self-interested to some degrees, right? We're all looking out for our interests. That's human nature. That's not a bad thing. But when we lack the ability to even have a modicum of concern or awareness for other people, let alone people that don't agree with us or don't look like us, that's a problem. So check out Vivek Ramaswamy, Chris Christie, you probably know about. Again, these are just people that I think, and Robert, on the Democratic side, I guess it would be Robert Kennedy Jr., the late Robert Kennedy's son. So, so I took a tour at my son's soon-to-be elementary school here down the street from us in Los Angeles. It's a charter school. I'm very happy so far with what I've seen on the campus. I was actually impressed. I don't see anything to be a warning sign, but what I'm hearing is it's case by case. LAUSD, just in response to all the pushback on the whole LGBTQ stuff in the elementary schools, they just issued a proclamation, I think they called it, affirming LGBTQ and encouraging every school to begin teaching these things to their kids. My stance, our stance is basically our son will go to our local school here, charter school here, and at the first sign of any of this stuff being pushed and us not having an option of him being pulled out of it, he'll be gone. He'll be going either homeschool or private school, and LAUSD and the local principal will get more than an earful from me. So, anyways, I think that deserves a little air horn action. What do we got here? We got a trombone. Nice. Okay, I'm kind of digging these sound effects. So that's this whole pride thing. So what does that mean for you? Look, again, I think the way forward is to affirm to people. I affirm who you are as a person. I affirm your right to freedom to live the way you choose to live. But that doesn't mean that people or myself have to go along with pride, have to go along with hanging anything other than government flags on government buildings, which is a whole nother thing that came up, right? You probably saw the article. I posted an article on my Instagram. You can find it easily. The United Nations at Rockefeller Center in New York took down 183 nation flags and put up 183 LGBTQIA flags. Okay. This is what I'm talking about, folks. It's getting absolutely overboard. And you got to start asking, like, why are corporations hammering this? Why is the government also hammering at the same time? What are the big rights that that LGBTQIA plus people don't have? I have heard from some people that I guess in some states or in some health situations, like lesbian or gay partners that aren't married, I think if they're not married, they might have limited rights as far as like health information of their loved one. But I think those that are married, I think that's pretty much been assuaged, that they, it's just like any normal married couple. That's a whole nother thing. Okay, here, I'm gonna give you, this is a bonus here. So some of you know that I studied theology and philosophy and biblical studies. I have a master's degree from Fuller Theological Seminary. Here's another area we've gone wrong. America has conflated marriage with the government. Marriage is a theological reality, meaning it's something people do before themselves and God and their faith community. Marriage should be dictated by local church bodies. And local church bodies should be able to say whether or not they will or won't marry certain people based on their faith criteria. Everybody should be able to have a civil union from the federal government that gives them all the grants and privileges of public union, okay? So all that to say is this: people could choose to get married in a church or faith setting only, and then they wouldn't get the government benefits. That would be one choice. People could choose to do a civil union and only the government aspect and none of the faith thing, and they would get all the civil benefits of that: man, man, woman, woman, man, and woman. Or they could choose to do both. And some churches could choose to marry gay and lesbian couples, and some, and probably many, would choose not to, and they shouldn't have to. Marriage is a theological category. Marriage is a church category. And unfortunately, in America, we've conflated those things incorrectly. And what we need to do is have a federal process that's run through the states for civil unions that everybody can have. And honestly, in this day and age where it's really expensive to live, people that say, hey, we're not romantically involved and we're not building a family per se because we're just roommates, but we are committed to, as a household, they should have some sort of benefits too. Like two single women that live together that are not lesbians, but they're like not in a relationship or not looking to get married or whatever, but they're going to be maybe roommates for 10 or 12 years or go in together to buy a house because they can't afford it on their own. They should be able to opt into a civil union that allows them household type benefits, because that the world's changed. Again, these are some of my ideas that I'd be putting out there if I was running for office. And again, this is a way that honors everybody and also correctly reaffirms that marriage is a theological category. That is to say that a given church or synagogue or mosque or religious organization dictates how their faith understands the union between a man and a woman, or a woman and a woman, or a man and a man, and they do the marrying. The state does the civil unioning, which is the public benefit aspect. We've gone way off by conflating and merging the two and confusing the two. That's my rant on that. Curious to hear what some people think on that. Trying to think what else. This is a short episode today because I kind of got it all out there. Yeah, just again, one thing I do want to hammer on again too is this: just because somebody disagrees with you or doesn't completely adopt your opinion does not make them hateful or a bigot. Okay, I have friends, I have family who voted for Donald Trump. I disagree with voting for Donald Trump, but I don't think that they're bigots. I understand the reasons as to why. I could never adopt those reasons because I think Trump at face value is repulsive. But I get and I understand why some people vote for Donald Trump. And that's, really the Democrat and Republican parties in this country are basically just cultural window dressing for the same people. They're all owned by corporate class donors and elite class donors. They don't represent their constituents. Think about it this way. Wyoming has the smallest population. They have 2 senators. California has the largest population. We have 2 senators. That doesn't make any sense. That's not equal representation. It's not fair that 40 million people have 2 representatives, and I don't know, maybe 1.5 million people in Wyoming, if that, have 2 representatives. That's not fair. But again, the founding fathers could have never foreseen the population growth that we've had. They could have never foreseen the growth of all the states. And so it's a shame that we haven't expanded. It's crazy that in the county of Los Angeles, a county of 10 million plus people, in Los Angeles County, we have 5 board of supervisors. We have 5 people, and they're all women right now, oddly, which is fine, but interesting. 5 supervisors, 5 people represent 10 million plus people for the whole LA County, which is, I think, the largest county in the United States. That's crazy. We should probably have about 30 to 40 to get a real consensus vote and to make it possible for multiple voices to be heard. But we have 5 people. That's crazy. So, again, there's a lot going on there. Let me see here. Am I spinning on my mic here? Somebody asked me on Instagram, why do I wear headphones during the podcast? So there's a couple reasons. And I learned this when I was researching podcasts. One is to hear myself so that I can make sure that what's being spoken into the microphone is actually clearly being transmitted. And then two, especially when I have a guest, is so that we don't talk over each other. It's proven that if you have the other person's voice in your ears and you're hearing them the way they're coming through the system, the soundboard, you're less likely to talk over them or continue talking over them. So that's why people wear headphones on podcasts, so they can actually hear themselves. Because if I didn't have headphones on, I would just hear how I sound in the room, and that's not representative of what it's actually going to sound like, because the microphone does magic. So anyways, again, to recap, guys, I'm really concerned about Pride, LGBTQIA+, but mostly the way the government and the corporations have merged together to aggressively push this. I'm also really concerned. I'm not concerned with anybody being gay or lesbian or transsexual. I mean, people have the right to, again, to make it abundantly clear, to live the way they choose. They don't have the right to impose on other people. Just like I don't have that right either. I can't insist that everybody has to learn the Christian faith. I can't. I wouldn't want to either. And I certainly wouldn't want you to celebrate Christian faith if you don't want to. See how that works? And it's also concerning. And what's going to be really crazy is the end of June, once we hit July 1st, all these corporations will stop talking about LGBTQIA. So literally they use Pride for 1 month and then they discard them. And it's that way. Corporations are just filthy. They're that way with everything. So to recap, there's that. So I just think that middle way I was talking about, try to think critically, try to not let people railroad you when they try to call you a transphobe or a bigot or this, that, because you don't lockstep agree with everything they have to say. Just remind them they're intellectual weaklings, and that position of you're either a bigot or an extremist, or you agree with everything from LGBTQI, like that's an intellectually weak position, and they should be embarrassed. And remind them that you affirm everybody's freedom to live the way they choose, but you also affirm the right of individuals to choose not to celebrate that lifestyle or those lifestyles. That's all, folks. My studio audience. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. That concludes our first podcast here on the Terra Firma podcast with Sam Andrus for June. I'm hoping to get at least 1 or 2 more in this month. I will be busy in the month of July. I'll be away, so I don't know if we'll get a full-on podcast. I might do some stuff while I'm out and about. Anyways, I do hope all of you, no matter where you stand, if you agree or disagree with me, that you do feel that you matter, because you do. I do hope that you enjoyed at least my honesty and the way that I'm trying to articulate and wrestle with and navigate through issues of our time. And I hope that you're blessed and that you be well and that you're healthy. Take care. Have a wonderful day wherever you may be.